Ciao guys, welcome to another episode of the Personal PR Show. And today we're here with Robbie. Robbie, welcome to the
Thank
Personal
you.
PR Show for the third time.
Awesome. Thanks for keep inviting me back.
Yeah, of course, because you're a great guest. That's the only reason why we're inviting you, right? Because you deliver so much value every single time. It's incredible. So thank you so much for coming to the Personal Show again. And what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I am moments away from releasing my third book, Break Out of Boredom, Low-Tech Solutions for Highly Engaging Zoom Events. And it's been almost 3 years since a worldwide pandemic sort of forced us to close down our in-person events and reinvent how we showed up in the world and how we connected with each other. And so this is a book for virtual presenters and virtual facilitators, coaches, course creators, speakers of all kinds who want to keep leveling up what they deliver in a virtual platform.
Oh, wow. So it's basically for everybody who uses Zoom, nearly everybody who uses Zoom, which are millions and millions of people, or even billions.
Yeah, I mean, I specifically had to, I think the thing to think about is always to figure out how to carve out your niche, right? So while you might do something that could be useful to everyone, the specific niche that I have focused on are presenters that are given the opportunity to do a session virtually that's 60, 75, or 90 minutes long. And it's like a one-time presentation. Now, all of the things I'm sharing would also work for courses and classes at like university, or even a weekly team meeting at a company. But the difference is that if you're not meeting every week, I think it's a sort of a little bit of a waste of time to teach people how to use a third-party tool. So that's kind of the differentiator for me. If you only have 75 minutes and your audience isn't familiar enough with whatever Mentimeter, Jamboard thing you're introducing to them, or even the whiteboard, it's just, you're spending a lot of time getting people ready to do an activity. So what my focus is the Zoom platform itself has so many features, many of them untapped, including, for instance, the advanced polling, where people can actually write their answers into the poll that a lot of people don't know about, and is now becoming something that I'm advocating us to use more. But then, almost 20% of the book is about breakout rooms, because I feel like that's another feature that people use but don't necessarily leverage the way it could be used. And so I just had a lot of pet peeves about how that was being done. And so I've read this book, and early feedback is that it's the most comprehensive guide for Zoom events on the planet. That's from my editor, who had a chance to read it one more time from front to back. And I was like, wow, thank you. So yes, I think it'll be very useful for people.
Yeah, definitely. Oh my God, this is super good. And Robbie, you just mentioned breakout rooms, and it's something that you usually talk about is also intentional engagement. So how do you produce intentional engagement through breakout rooms?
Well, a lot of times people have had the experience where people are put into breakout rooms, but they're not really sure what they're doing in the breakout rooms. They don't know what they're supposed to be discussing. They don't know who's supposed to go first. Everyone's muted when they first get there. And you have this moment where people are just kind of like looking around at each other, and then someone will unmute and start taking on the conversation, but they may just dominate the conversation. They may not. So from the perspective of the organizer or the host or speaker who sent them in, they're thinking, oh yeah, that was engagement, checkbox. But the problem is that wasn't intentional engagement. It wasn't like everyone felt welcomed into the conversation. So I really implore people to be more thoughtful about why they're doing breakout rooms, to be really clear on how many minutes and how many people based on the activity, not based on how many people are at the event. So the only constraint is the number of rooms, but beyond the constraint of the number of rooms that you can open, which is soon to be 100, by the way, right now it's 50, you'll be able to like really think, well, okay, I just want to do a quick hello. That's 3 people. I want people to do a quick share, 4 or 5 people for 10 minutes. Oh, I want people to get into a deep discussion. Okay, we're going to add, more time. Like, it's just, you get clear on the purpose. So it's all about purpose first design, but then you share the question, you share an example answer, you tell them what order to go in. There's just all these little nuances so that when people get in, their brains are already engaged in the question. They know who's going to go first. They're ready to have a conversation. They feel welcomed into it. I think that structure is actually equity. when people don't know how to jump into the conversation, they don't know how to ask questions or how to, grab, when can they grab the microphone? When they don't have those systems really clearly laid out, the most privileged, loudest, confident people will always dominate those conversations. And so if we really want to invite people and make them feel welcomed, then that structure is really important. So there's just really, I'm advocating for sort of creating more connection in these spaces that we can use this virtual platform to do that. And it's not what I expected virtual platforms to do before the pandemic. It was just, 45 minutes of death by PowerPoint followed by ineffectual Q&A and no one moderating chat. And it just was, that was a typical webinar. But now I feel like we have an expectation that when you get on a Zoom meeting or Zoom call, it's going to be more.
No, definitely. Absolutely. I love the way that you use breakout rooms for intentional engagement and for inclusivity for all voices. What are other ways for all voices to be heard, but then let's say in the main room without using breakout rooms?
Well, I think that opening with some kind of Zoom orientation or housekeeping to help people understand how we're going to use this platform. So for instance, how are you collecting questions? Now, one of the benefits of being online compared to in person is that you can collect questions in chat, and then you can screen those questions to find the ones that you want to elevate to the full room, the ones that you feel are really going to be beneficial. I think of them as generous questions, the questions that a lot of people in the room would appreciate hearing the answer to. So giving that clear instruction, or at what point do you want people to use the raised hand feature under reactions, or like, when will people have the opportunity to unmute? Just being really clear about that. So I like when people write the word question in all caps in the in chat, so that I see that word and then I see whatever they have to say. And behind the scenes, if it's a bigger event, I'll have someone helping me copy, or maybe I'm that person as a Zoom producer, copying and pasting the question and the person's name into a separate shared document, like a Google Doc. And that way we sort of really clear. And then other things are, I use a pause slide and a you are here slide. So the pause slide is a pause button, and it's a little, icon of a pause button. And it says, okay, take a moment to jot down your takeaways and write your questions in chat. So we just went through a segment of information. You've heard all this content. We're going to pause. Gives me a chance, take a breath, get a drink of water, scan for any questions I might need to answer like right away. But I try not to talk for at least 30 seconds up to a minute, depending on sort of what's going on in chat. There are a lot of people for a lot of reasons, including neurodiversity and recovering from traumatic brain injury and, ADHD and autism and all these things that will keep people or just multitasking or distracted, that they need a moment to kind of catch up, jot down their ideas. And then the next slide is a you are here slide that has a list of the agenda, but the topic we're about to talk about is brighter. And so I say, great, I answered one question from the previous thing that's just, clarification. This is what the acronym means. Great. Now we're going to move on to, and I show them the next slide. And so that really helps everyone recalibrate. So that's the kinds of things that we can do in the main room that would help more people fully participate.
Yeah, this is amazing. Wow. You have so much wisdom because you've been running events on Zoom for 3 years since the beginning of the pandemic, right? I mean, previously as well, but with this, let's say, level of expertise for the past 3 years and really taking a leading role in space and really teaching people. So let's say that, because I know that you have a certification as well. You've had it for about 2 years, probably, in which you really teach.
Yeah, actually, it's almost 3 years now, because it started in it was April 2020 is when I announced it. May 2020 was the first one, and 3 months in, it became a certification. So July of 2020 was the first time I had a certification.
4 months into the pandemic, already you had a certification. This is crazy. God,
yeah, I mean, it happened so quick. It just people started to come to me as someone who knew more than they did about Zoom, and I was hosting at such a rate that I mean, this is the goal that I strive for, and I suggest everyone strives for, is to get 5% better every time you Zoom. whether you're hosting, facilitating, speaking, even participating, like just being there, just understanding better how you can design this experience for yourself. So I was really rapidly getting 5% better every time. And that kind of continuous growth. So a month after the pandemic started, I announced this 4-week program that became known as the 5% Advantage program. There is a certification attached. And I'm putting out a new idea with the release of my book. And actually, I haven't talked about this before. There's 3 levels. So before, you had to pay the full fee. Whether or not you wanted the certification, you still had to pay the full fee. Now I have an audit level, I have a personalized feedback level, and I have a certification level. So the certification level means you get all those things. You get to attend all the sessions, you get personalized feedback from me, and you get a meet with me for an hour to design your certification, run a show, and then I review your video for the certification and see whether you passed. The second level is the same idea without the certification, but it might be a team member instead of me that reviews your video as your practice video. But then people can just audit. They don't, they just want to attend the 3 sessions, but not necessarily get that personalized feedback. They can attend the 3 sessions and then just try things out on their own. And there's plenty to learn. The nice part is that instead of it just being a one-time meeting, I feel like people will learn a little bit more just by attending 3 sessions in a month to kind of like be thinking and be in conversation with people. There's a lot to learn, a lot to absorb. All 3 of them include 70 plus videos that I've already created that they get to watch on their own, including an hour's worth of video, little short clips that I suggest they watch before we even meet, so that we just jump right in to the conversation. So it's very experiential for those who want to do that and want to get that kind of feedback. And yeah, I'm excited because I think the market's changed. And so not everyone necessarily wants to be certified, although I think people are going to realize midway through that they want to jump up, and then they can always, advance to that.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, this is amazing. And let's say that, somebody certifies with you, or they study with you, or they read your book. So they, let's say, achieve a certain level of expertise when it comes to, designing Zoom events. Then what would you say is the time that they will need to let's say, design the typical event? Is it something, because you talk about slides and so on, is it something that we can expect to be able to do maybe in 10 minutes per event? Because I know I've taken part in many of your events and they are prepared so well by the minute, exactly when you will say what to whom and so on. So I was wondering, what can we expect? How long is it going to take us?
Well, I guess when you're first starting something, it always takes a little longer, but then you end up with templates, and it's really easy once you have the templates in place. So I have it in my head. It depends on the kind of event. So if I'm doing a virtual happy hour, which you've attended several of the ones I've run, I have a template now. So I know, so I do one that's 90 minutes long. That's a virtual happy hour for professionals. And I run the similar one that's only 60 minutes. So what I ended up deciding was I was going to create a 60-minute program. And then the 90-minute one has 30 minutes at the end that is just, open up conversation. Like people can just raise their hand and we run it more like a mastermind. But I did that so that the same run of show works for the 60-minute program that I run a week later. Right. Yeah. And because before I was like, oh, I have all this extra time, let me do all these extra things. And I was like, this community would really appreciate the opportunity to just ask each other questions. And it's small enough where that would work and that would still fulfill an objective that they have. So for me, I'm thinking, okay, what can I fit into 60 minutes? So I ended up doing 3 breakout rooms because the purpose of the session is for people to connect with each other. But I didn't want it to just be networking back and forth. I put together a piece of content, or I find a piece of content from somebody. And so I share just a few minutes as a little bit of a conversation starter. And then we talk about that in our rooms. So it's workshop light. I don't know. It's not really a full workshop, but there are elements of learning, because I feel like learning together helps us learn about each other and ourselves. So it's not just, so if you were fruit, what kind of fruit would you be? Because at some point we run out of those questions, or like, what do we ask each other? But when you're getting started, I really think it's understanding when people come into your session, they're going to be thinking, feeling, and or doing one thing. And at the end of your session, they're going to be thinking, feeling, and or doing hopefully something else. Well, what is that something else? What's that transformation that we're hoping for? And then with that in mind, we then can decide how many minutes of content we need to share, what kind of content, lecture style, fireside chat, panel, what kind of people do we need on the panel, what kind of stories we need on the panel. Is there going to be an exercise? Are we going to do breakout rooms? Are we going to do poll? Like, it's always understanding the end result first and then backing into it, and then just figuring out the timing. You want to make sure there's time for Q&A and the intro and the outro. So honestly, like 60 minutes, there's only actually 35 minutes to play with in a 60-minute program. If it's traditionally like 5-minute introduction, 5-minute close, 15 minutes for Q&A, you've just taken 25 minutes off of 60. That leaves you 35 minutes. And I don't know that enough people recognize that when they start designing. They think, I've got 60 minutes. And it's like, well, then that's why you keep running over into your Q&A and not having time for it. And I really think Q&A could be really one of the most vibrant parts of a conversation when done well. The when done well part, I guess, is critical there.
Exactly. Yeah. Underlined 3 times. But Robbie, you mentioned panels as well a few times, and panels is something that, to be honest, I've always been passionate about as a consumer, let's say as a viewer, but also as a moderator. Recently, I've been on a few panels as a moderator, online, offline. I'm, moderating a panel in the metaverse next month for International Women's Day. So what are, let's say, maybe 3 things that we should consider, we should observe to run a good panel as a moderator on Zoom?
I'm going to first tell you 2 things not to do. Don't hand the speaker the microphone to each panelist and ask them to introduce themselves. I'll tell you what to do instead. Don't have more than 3 or 4 panelists. When you get to 5 or more, it is a lot. And it's even a lot for the panelists who are like waiting their turn. They're getting tired. And the last thing is, don't make every panelist answer every question. That is really lazy design. So instead of those 3 things, instead have the moderator share a 30 to 60 second credibility introduction. Ooh. And the credibility introduction answers 2 questions. Why should we listen to this person? And what might we learn? That's it. That doesn't mean you have to read every paper they've ever written, every book they've ever published, every degree they've ever earned. You just need to answer, why should we listen to this person? And what might we learn? And if you do it as the moderator, you can do it succinctly, and it also gives more credibility to this person being here than if they even had said those same words themselves. So like you saying it actually elevates their status, and it says it more succinctly. Yeah. Then I would design ahead of time with the speakers, with the panelists, what are some of the main key points based on the outcome we're trying to shift people to take action, for instance? Well, what are some of the challenges? What are some of the concerns people have about taking action? Let's make sure we address some of those points as well as the successes you've had. Let's hear some of the challenges you've had to overcome. Okay, great. I'm going to ask these 3 questions. Panelist A, you're going to get the primary 5-minute answer to the first question. Panelist B to the second question. Panelist C to the third question. And then each of you are also designated a 2-minute follow-up to each of these questions. So it'll be a 5-minute answer and then a 2-minute answer, a 5-minute answer and then a 2-minute answer, 5-minute answer, a 2-minute answer. And you prescribe that. That takes about 24 minutes. So it's the introductions plus that back and forth those questions. I plan for a 30-minute panel because the moderator has the ability, because they now know more about these panelists in the prep ahead of time, to do a couple of follow-up questions themselves. And what you're seeing as an audience member is a dialogue between people, and it's way more interesting. I don't understand why we put people on a stage if they're not going to interact. If they're all just going to monologue, then I would say have them come one at a time and monologue. Like if you want to interview each one of them, then do one fireside chat, have them leave the stage, bring the next person up, do a fireside chat is a more in-depth interview with 1 or 2 people, which is sometimes the better answer. But don't have people just sitting there waiting their turn while, it's like, it's not the Late Show where, the last guest is sitting on the couch and the next guest is sitting next to the desk. Like, why are they still on stage unless they're going to talk to each other, So, so those are the 2 things. I really think the planning in advance makes such a big difference in how it comes across. And I also think it's helpful for the panelists to know exactly what key points they need to focus on, what stories to tell.
Yes. Robbie, this has been amazing. Oh my God. I have to ask our lovely relationship manager, Chair, to transcribe what you just said about panels. Oh my
Well,
God.
it's
And
all in my
please,
book. So, and I would love for the help from your audience, your community, personal PR folks. I am looking to get 100+ Amazon reviews by March 13th. It can be done. I've done it twice before. It means building really big launch teams. And so if you're interested in this topic, which you're still listening, so you must be, break out of boredom, low tech solutions for highly engaging Zoom events, go to robbiesamuels.com/breakout launch. And you can sign up. You're going to get early access, bonus content, the ebook for $2.99 US. I mean, I'm giving people as much as they can just for them making the commitment to writing the review. And then I will do my best to help you follow through with that intention, because you'll feel great and I'll feel great. But one of the things I share that I don't think a lot of people realize is I actually do a free masterclass in like May. I'll do this for participants of my launch to share with them how I built a launch team. So this is my third time doing a big launch like this. And my other books have over 200 reviews. So I know it's possible. I know it works. So if you're interested even in book launches, come and hang out with me to see how I run mine. And then I'll actually help you know the behind the scenes of how we do this when we get closer to that.
oh my God, Robbie, this is amazing. Absolutely. I want to be on the book launch team as
You
well.
are, yeah.
Should
Thank
be.
you.
Yes, everybody should be. Guys, I mean, you certainly, because if we are here in personal PR, we want to be thought leaders as well. Maybe we are already thought leader, who knows? But anyway, everybody who is in personal PR should publish a book one day. You absolutely want to know how Robbie always manages. This is the third time in a row to have 500 people on his book launch team and 200 reviews per book on Amazon. This is stuff that usually doesn't happen, right? How does he manage to do this? How does Robbie manage to do this? He will tell us in a masterclass in May. All we need to do is to get on his book launch team.
Yep.
Isn't it? Yeah, there's a no-brainer.
robbiesamuels.com/breakout launch. I'd love to have your support. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to be here.
Of course, Robbie, thank you so much for coming and, sharing your wisdom as usual. Please, promise that you will come back for a fourth time.
I'm sure we'll find another topic.
Yeah, certainly. Maybe just one about only panels, 30 minutes on panels. What do you think?
Maybe we have to have a panel about it. I don't know.
Exactly. Do that. Okay. So next time, Robbie will moderate a panel. Yeah, we'll decide which guest. You bring some, I bring some, we put them together, you moderate.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Yeah. Cool. Bye, guys. See you soon for another episode of the Personal PR Show. Thank you so much, Robbie. Take care. Bye, everybody. Ciao.